So, una po sa lahat, ma'am, where does anxiety come from?
Scientifically, if we talk about anxiety, it's manufactured in the part of the brain called amygdala. So, amygdala is a small part located behind our temples, dito yung sa temples. And it's responsible for controlling our emotions such as fear, anxiety, aggression, and arousal. So, when there is an impending danger or when a person conceives danger, it requires a sudden response. That's why you could notice that whenever you feel afraid or whenever you see a stimulus that might make you feel that it's something that you have to fear of, you will see that there is a quick response with our body. Merong increased heart rate, increased perspiration, increased respiratory rate, and so on. Increased blood pressure, increased blood sugar. Though they are increasing, that could also be helpful for the body. Kasi, di ba, it activates also the fight or flight response. Pag sinabi natin fight or flight response, it's up to you if you're going to face the stimulus or if you're going to withdraw from the stimulus. So, it's like giving your body a signal on what should be the next steps or what should be the next actions that you must do. So, ayun. And there are different causes of anxiety and depression at the same time. So, for the different causes, it depends upon the person as to how do they feel these kinds of experiences. When we talk about anxiety, it refers to a term wherein it could be ranging from a normal case to a mild case to a higher level of the case which could trigger the development of a disorder. But generally, the feeling is including nervousness, fear, apprehension, and at the same time, a person worry a lot.
So, normal lang po ba yun?
Normal lang na magkaroon tayo ng anxiety. Like for example, you're going to speak in front of many people. Diba, initially, kakabahan ka. Pero later on, if it's just in a normal situation, unti-unti habang nagsasalita ka, nawawala yung kaba mo. Diba, mapapansin mo yon. Pero, for other people, kapag naging disorder siya, haharap ka sa tao, yung act pa lang na naiisip mo na harap ka sa tao, it gives you a feeling of too much fear, too much worry, and it might let you not to do the tasks of facing the people or facing the public. Ganun siya pa na yung disorder. Pero normally, it's just fine. It's just normal. On the other hand, when we talk about depression, it's a state or a feeling characterized by too much sadness, wherein a person feels hopeless, a person feels that nobody would be there to take care of them, nobody loves them, and you pity yourself at the same time. Also, it's characterized by changes in one's behavior. Like for example, the person may socially withdraw from other people because of too much sadness. O kaya naman, with regards to appetite, it could either increase your appetite or decrease your appetite. Di ba pag sabi mo, depressed ako, yung iba, comfort food, di ba? Kaya nagiging ng weight, stress eating. Pero yung iba, nawawalan ng ganang kumain. Kaya nagiging anorexic din sila. On the other hand, pwede rin magkaroon ng sleeping pattern problems. Like for example, a person could have insomnia, hindi siya makatulog. O kaya naman, a person could suffer from hypersomnia. Pag hypersomnia naman, tulog siya ng tulog. Kasi when you sleep, that's one way of escaping from the stressful conditions that you have. Also, it's characterized by one of the most risky effect is a tendency for suicide. Ayun. So, na yung question number 2.
So, ma'am, ibig sabihin po ba nun, yung pagkakaroon ng anxiety or depression, parang yung pagde-develop niya accidental lang talaga. Na dahil, for example, natakot akong magsalita sa harap ng maraming tao kasi may nangyari sa akin before. Sa pagharap ko sa maraming tao. So, dahil ba dun sa nangyari na yun, pwedeng ma-create or ma-develop na dun yung anxiety?
That could be one factor. But generally, a person really feels anxious over some things because anxiety is a response to a stressful condition. Yun.
Okay. So, ma'am, posible po ba na yung mga bata magkaroon sila ng anxiety din?
Oh,
like
yes.
4 to 8 years old?
It's possible that children would have anxiety and depression as early as that? Well, most of the researches would say that it's a normal part on the growing or the developing individual to experience those things.
Sa mga bata talaga.
Oo. Even the simple tasks, for example, di ba yung mga bata, pag nadudumi or naiihi kahit saan, pinapagalitan ng parents. That's something, or that's an example wherein a situation that would make them feel anxious. Halimbawa, naihi sila dyan, hindi sila nakaabot ng CR. One factor could be, pag napagalitan sila ng parents nila dahil umihi or dumumi sila doon, yung actual na thing na pinagalitan sila, that could cause them to be anxious if that thing happens again. Ayun. Another thing, sa mga bata, pag pupunta sila sa school, yung separation anxiety, pag iiwanan na sila ng parents nila, hindi naman sila totally iniiwan, kailangan lang nilang humiwalay. But they feel uncomfortable because of that case. Kaya nagiging anxious ulit sila. Kaya naman, may task na ipapagawa yung teacher, hindi nila magawa ng maayos, they think that they could be humiliated by their classmates, pwedeng mapahiya sila, or pwedeng pati yung mismo yung teacher ipahiya sila. Kaya nagkakaroon ng anxiety. Another thing, the anxiety that is being felt by the children could also be a factor because of the upbringing in the family. If the parents keep on quarreling, that is having a great impact on the development of the child. Natatakot sila. Bakit nag-aaway? Lalo kapag tumataas yung boses ng parents, lalo kapag nakikita nilang sinasaktan ng father yung mother or vice versa. That is something anxious for the children. Another thing, nag-aaway dahil financial matters, dahil hindi nakapag-exam, dahil hindi nabayaran ng tuition, very high ang risk nun mag-cause ng anxiety sa bata. Ganun din sa depression. Pag ganun yung situation na nakamold yung mga bata, doon sila naka-expose, the parents could not be aware that their children are already undergoing depression. Nalulungkot na yung mga bata, and then they tend to develop some symptoms which are not being observed by the parents. Kaya nagiging worse yung case, hindi lang siya basta nagiging anxiety and depression at a normal state na nagde-develop as a disorder. Diba tayo? Pag merong nakakalungkot na bagay, it's natural to be sad. It's a normal reaction naman, diba? However, the problem would be if our reaction during the depressive times would always be prolonged at hindi tayo makarecover at yung normal na activities natin na apektuhan na, ganun siya nagiging problema. Yun.
So ma'am, parang is it safe to say na yung mga bata sa bahay ampunan, mas prone sila to depression and anxiety kasi wala silang pamilya?
Sa mga bahay ampunan. Well, that's one big thing because sabi ko nga, di ba, originally sa family, isa yung factor para makadevelop ng anxiety and depression sa kanila. However, kung yung mga nasa paligid naman nila, maayos naman at naipapakita na hindi sila dapat malungkot, na hindi nila dapat isipin yung mga kung ano yung lacking sa kanila, they could be prevented from experiencing anxiety and depression.
So, ma'am, ano po ba yung mga signs?
Okay.
Particularly sa bata.
Sa bata.
Malalaman ng mga parents nila na meron po silang anxiety or depression.
First is, kung depressed, you will observe the physical appearance of the child. They tend to be fearful, they tend to be sad, they could have teary eyes, di ba mapapansin natin, or sometimes they just burst out crying. Another, they feel hopeless. Kaya may mga suicide din sa bata. Another, decreased interest in activities. Diba, may mga batang naglalaro. Diba, normally, ang mga bata, pag may nakitang mga kapwa bata na naglalaro, sasali. Or kahit wala silang nakikita ibang bata, makikita mo maglalaro yan. But in that case, they lost interest in playing. Another thing,
ayaw makipag-interact.
Nalalesen ng interaction. They want to be alone, they tend to be aloof. At the same time, they could experience persistent boredom and they have low energy in carrying out tasks. Because one of the hallmark of depression is the inability to experience or to have joy. Yun. Tapos, social isolation, poor communication. Di ba, kakausapin, tatanungin mo yung mga bata, o kamusta? You will see that the child will just look at you, and you will, kung very keen ka, makikita mo na yung bata, hindi siya okay. Kahit nasabihin niyang okay siya. Another, they could have extreme sensitivity, especially in cases of rejection. Tapos, difficulty with relationships. Pag sinabing difficulty with relationships, your interaction with a person who is usually close to you could be altered because you tend to isolate yourself. You tend to keep something inside you that you do not want to disclose because of the sadness that you're actually feeling. At the same time, it's also characterized by physical symptoms like frequent headaches, stomach aches, pagkatapos, nagre-reflect din siya. And then, there could be different body pains na kapag pina-check mo naman yun, okay naman sila. Tapos, sa mga bata, lalo sa mga nag-aaral na bata, they could be frequently absent from their classes. And the school performance is also affected. Bababa yung grade ng mga bata. Kahit naman sa atin, kapag natidepress tayo, wala tayong gana, hindi mo siya, wala kang ganang gawin yung bagay. Tapos, poor concentration, because you are lacking focus on the things you're carrying out. Same thing, changes in sleeping patterns, changes in eating patterns. It could either, gaya na sinabi ko kanina, pwedeng mag-increase, pwedeng mag-decrease. Tapos, they talk of efforts to run away from home. Yung makikita mo yon sa ibang bata, ayaw niyan uuwi agad. Gusto niya muna magstay sa school, makikipaglaro muna. O normal lang naman na gusto niyang makipaglaro. Pero yung parang ayoko pang umuwi, baka meron yung indication na hindi siya masaya sa bahay nila. And then, they could have thoughts of ending their life. They could have thoughts of suicide. As early as that age.
Ayoko na, mami, mga ganun. So, ma'am, ano po to? Iba po ba yung mga symptoms sa mga bata? Meron po bang particular sa bata? Meron po bang particular sa matanda? Or usually parehas?
Usually parehas naman sila. Nagkakaiba lang sa kung ano yung normal na kinikilos ng tao. Di ba sa atin, iba ang tasks natin. Sa mga bata, iba ang tasks. Pero, ganun din siya halos. Generally, ganun din sila.
So, ma'am, ito po ba, kasi sa mga bata, di ba, parang, pag nakakita ba sila ng ganitong symptoms na, ay, paiba-iba yung sleeping pattern ng anak ko, may anxiety na siya, dapat ba mag-worry agad yung parent?
Okay. The parents have to be very observant about the behaviors of their children. Pero it doesn't mean that if they see different patterns of sleep, different patterns of appetite, they have to worry about. Their attention must be called. And they have to know why is the child behaving that way. They have to observe closely and they have to monitor why is the child behaving that way. Tapos continuous observation lang yon. If they don't see any improvement despite the efforts of trying to cheer them up, di ba, syempre, re-rewardan ng nanay. And another important thing is communication, quality time. And you have to show the person that they are important. Kasi 'di ba, hopeless 'yan, depressed 'yan. O sa bata naman, bigyan mo lang 'yan ng laruan, bigyan mo lang 'yan ng candy, ng chocolate, natutuwa na sila. Despite those efforts na ginawa na ng parents, kung talagang nakikita nila na, kasi ma-observe naman siya, kung talagang nakikita nilang down yung bata, depressed yung bata, then they have to shift or they have to get some psychological consultations. Ang problema lang dito sa Pilipinas, if you seek psychological advices or psychological consultations, there is a stigma that you are not well. May sakit ka sa utak. Di ba parang ano lang din yan?
Mas nalala po ata pag sa bata.
Oo.
Pag ganun.
Hindi naman siya dapat. Kasi kung talagang kailangan ng psychological intervention, kailangan siyang gawin. Para ma-prevent din yung progression ng disorder or pagkalala ng disorder.
So, dapat po ba lahat ng symptoms mapansin muna nung magulang or if they feel something about their kid, ano na agad?
Not necessarily lahat siya kasi sa psychology, meron pang DSM na tinatawag. Halimbawa, for out of ganyan yung lumabas or kahit isa nga lang kapag may lumabas tapos nakikita mong ganun yung behavior niya, ipa-check mo na kung hanggat maaari or gawin mo yung kaya mong intervention para sa bata. Yun.
So, ma'am, paano po ba natin isa-stop yung development ng anxiety or depression sa isang bata habang bata pa lang po sila?
Okay. One of the important thing is to make the environment wherein they are living at a bit free from stress or anxiety-causing situations. Kasi if the children are exposed to a devastating situation as early as their childhood ages, that could give a great impact on the development of their personality. Another thing is that if the parents of the children are also suffering from depression, there is a great tendency that the children will be behaving that way like their parents. So, ganun yung nangyayari. Kasi nakikita mo ganito yung parents mo, nakikita mo ganun yung behavior nila. So, malaking tendency na ganun din yung mangyari sa mga bata. Yun. So, you have to make sure that the environment wherein the child is moving around would be a bit stress-free kasi hindi mo naman siya totally ma-eliminate. And also, the role of the parents in molding the children are very important.
So, dapat po ba lagi silang nandyan?
Not necessarily lagi silang nandiyan kasi, of course, they have to work.
Tsaka po kasi isip ko, baka naman masyadong ma-attach naman yung bata.
Oo, yung separation anxiety. But they just have to do their part as parents. Kahit na nag-work sila, kahit na busy sila, basta yung quality time at saka yung pagpapahalaga at pagbibigay ng importansya sa bata. That's one big thing. For example, may Parents-Teachers Association meeting. Though parang sa atin, wala lang yon, yung bata, nagiging proud yan kapag yung parents niya kompletong nandun. Tapos, kung laging wala yung parents niya, every time na magkakaroon ng ganong event, nagiging anxious siya tuloy. Tataas yung level ng anxiety niya kasi isipin niya, wala na naman yung parents ko, papapuntahin ko na naman sila. Ganon na naman. Nag-heighten tuloy yung anxiety nila.
I see. How about yung mga friends, ma'am? Yung mga friends ng mga bata, meron ba silang magagawa to stop the development of the anxiety?
Their friends could be also helpful, lalo na sa mga bata which they enjoy playing. They have to be with peers into which they could be sharing their same interest. They could be sharing toys together. Kasi minsan kapag, di ba nga, pag yung bata anxious or depressed, poor ang social interaction niya. So, kung kapalagayan loob niya yung mga bata, napakilala siya sa mga batang nakakasundo niya, unti-unti, nadadivert yung attention para hindi sila magkaroon ng anxiety. Another thing, di ba yung mga pinapanood ng bata, pag minsan nakakatakot, nakaka-trigger rin yan para mag-develop ng anxiety. Unti-unti, pwede silang magka-nightmares dahil there is a recall of the scenes that they have seen on TV. So, medyo ialis muna or bawasan yung pagpapanood ng mga horror films sa mga bata. Kasi they might think that what's happening there is really true.
So, ma'am, halimbawa, kunwari nagkaroon yung bata ng anxiety, na-diagnose siya ng anxiety. Pwede niya pa ba yung madala pagtanda? Pwede ba yung bumalik, mag-recur?
Pero pwede pa rin siyang mag-recur hanggang pagtanda. Nasa pagkocontrol na lang yun ng tao. Lalo habang nagkaka-age siya. Kasi di ba sabi ko nga, anxiety and depression is a normal part of life. And everybody experience it. So, pwedeng mas maging grabe kung hindi na siya kayang ayusin ng bata or ng tao mismo.
So, ma'am, ano yung worst case scenario ng isang taong may anxiety or depression?
Magpapakamatay. Yun. Kahit yung bata, there was a research before, or there was, merong na balita noon na yung bata ay nagbaril dahil sa depression niya, dahil may problema ang family niya. ano pa lang yung bata nyo, nasa elementary pa lang siya. Tapos sa mga early adolescence naman, may mga batang nagbibigti dahil nadidepress naman kapag nababasted sila, 'di ba? Bibigti or maglalaslas. Ayun yung mga...
So, yun po talaga yung first.
Ayun. O kaya naman, kung hindi death, anxiety, depression could lead to anxiety disorders or depressive disorders.
Na pwede, kailangan po sila mag-ward? Kailangan po sila ikulong?
Merong mga cases na kailangang i-ward. Ayun. Lalo kapag nananakit na siya at pati yung sarili niya, sinasaktan niya.
So, ma'am, ano po, mayroon po bang mga allowed na i-take yung mga bata na medicine?
There could be medications, pero in psychology, we want that before giving a medication or in the form of drugs, they undergo therapy first. But for the medications, merong medications na binibigay, the antidepressants. Usually, it's in the form of SSRI or SNRI. Pero, I think it would be better that before giving medications, psychological therapy would be given first because if medications are given ahead, there are some of the side effects which could not be good on the part of the child and they could feel more anxious upon taking the medications.
So, ma'am, ano po ba yung mga therapy na pwede i-undergo ng isang bata?
Therapy. The best therapy for anxiety and depression is called as the cognitive behavioral therapy. So, CBT, ayun yung tawag doon. So, in the case of the cognitive behavioral therapy, it's a type of talk therapy, okay, that has been scientifically shown to be effective in treating anxiety and depressive disorders. So, in CBT, the psychologist would be teaching skills and techniques to the child in order to reduce the anxiety. For example, may mga negative thoughts sa utak ng bata na nakakatakot yan, nakakakaba yan. Through CBT, through their interactions, yung notion ng bata na nakakatakot or nakakakaba, nagiging positive ang attack sa kanya. So, nako-condition yung cognition or yung cognitive level niya. Pagkatapos, those negative thinking patterns would be replaced by positive ones. Through that, dahil na-control ang mind mo, yung behavior mo ngayon, magbabago. Okay. So, the child will also learn to separate realistic from unrealistic thoughts. And they will think that the tasks that were assigned by the psychologist is a homework. Diba? Dahil yung mga bata, masyado masunurin sa teacher, homework na ganyan, dapat kong gawin, susundin niya, tatandaan niya na, ito yung dapat kong gawin, accomplish ko ba? So, ganun yung part na CBT. So, in psychology, that's one of the best treatment.
How many months po usually tumatagal ang CBT?
Well, it depends in the development of the patient or the client. Meron namang ibang cases na hindi na kailangan ng consultation at lalo kapag masyadong yung parents, traditionally parents na ayaw ng magpa-consult. So, nasa kanila na yun, ayusin nila kung paano ma-change yung thoughts ng bata, yung negative thoughts into positive ones. Tsaka, kung hindi pa naman siya ganun kalala, still fine.
I see. So, ma'am, gaano katagal to usually? Mga 3 months? Yung sa isang parang sabihin natin common na patient.
Okay. Usually, depende sa sessions, pwede siyang maging, kung gaano katagal at gaano kalala, yung improvement niya, 6 months or more than that.
So, magkano po to usually, ang CBT?
Depende yan sa practitioner. Oo. Kaya minsan hindi rin nagpapakonsult dahil sa bayad.
So, meron po bang mas mura na therapy bukod sa CBT na pwedeng gawin ng mga parents? Or ito po talaga yung pinaka-advice?
Ayan yung advisable lalo kapag hindi na nila ma-manage. Pero if they want, they could enroll their children into some activities like workshops because those diversional activities could be also helpful. Like for example, art, activity, arts, painting, O kaya naman, yung workshops in acting, in dancing, very enjoying yan sa mga bata. O kaya naman, they could be into sports, like swimming, lalo kapag summer, usong-uso yan, basketball, things like that. Para in such a way, it could be diverted into another form, which could not be in the form of CBT. Pero, that still depends on the condition of the child who is suffering from depression or anxiety.
Kasi kung sobrang lalala na.
Kailangan na siya talaga. Oo.
Tapos, kapag hindi po nag-work yung CBT, doon pa lang po mabibigyan ng medicines or...
Yung iba naman, they have CBT together with antidepressants together para mas mapabilis. Pero kung kaya na siyang makuha sa CBT lang, okay na yun. O kaya yung iba naman, kapag psychiatrist naman, diretso yan ng medications. Magpe-prescribe talaga siya ng medications. Yun. Tsaka di ba, no one treatment could be best for a person. Kasi the process of recovering still depends on the client, and it also depends on the people surrounding the individuals.
So, bale, ma'am, the parents don't have to worry kasi yung anxiety naman and depression can be cured.
Yes, they don't have to worry kasi sabi nga natin, di ba, it's just a normal process of life. It just depends on us on how fast we would recover from it or if we will allow ourselves to progress it to become a disorder. Yun. Ang worry mo na lang kapag dumating sa point na disorder na siya and delikado na kasi naapektuhan na yung activities of daily living ng tao at saka ando na yung harm na nakokos niya sa sarili niya or sa ibang tao.
I see. So, ma'am, nakalimutan ko itanong kanina. Kunwari po yung nanay, nagkaroon siya ng depression before. Meron din po bang mataas na tendency na mamana yun ng anak?
Yes, kasi genetically, depression could also be transferred to the offspring. And also for the gender, women are more likely to develop depression than males because of the hormones in our bodies. You could notice that before your menstruation,
So, totoo po pala siya,
totoo
hindi
siya.
siya myth? Okay.
Before your menstruation, during your menstruation, or days after your menstruation, you could experience depression. You just wake up in the morning and you feel like you're sad, you feel like you're crying. It's normal. Wag lang siyang magpo-progress. O kaya naman, pagkapanganak mo, nadidepress ang mother, wag lang siyang susobra kasi pwede siyang maging tawag doon, naging psychotic blues. Kasi 'di ba kapag panganak mo, yung attention is shift doon sa batang pinanganak mo, and then you tend to tell yourself, bakit hindi nila ako pinapansin or bakit hindi nila ako pinapahalagahan? The fact that I have given birth, the fact that I have exerted a lot of effort, and the fact that I was the one who bore the child. So, nasi-shift yung attention sa bata. Sabi ng cute ng bata, bakit hindi nila sinasabing, ang galing siya yung nakapagpanganak? Yun, the person tends to feel depressed.
Kahit po sa mga batang babae.
Kahit sa batang babae, lalo kapag ano na sila, di ba, pre-puberty, ayan. And also, insecurities, especially dahil merong mga physical changes sa body, nagkakaroon ng, nag-iba na yung hubog ng katawan. Sometimes, they tend to feel depressed kapag nagkakaroon sila ng comparisons with other children. O halimbawa, minsan, siya nagkaroon na ng menstruation, di ba, magkaka-pimples siya. Tapos pupunahin ng ibang mga bata, o bakit ganyan? O malulungkot ngayon yung bata. Kaya naman yung ibang bata, hindi pa nagkakaroon, siya nagdidysmenorrhea, edi irritable siya. nagkakaroon ng hindi magandang ugnayan dun sa mga kasama niyang bata, nadidepress din siya. O kaya naman pag nabubuli siya or inaasar siya na, bakit siya may ganito, bakit siya may stain na, bakit kami wala.
So, ma'am, for my last question, yung word po ba na depressed at anxious, you think ginagamit ng mga Pinoy as isang overrated na salita?
Yes, and sometimes they tend to interchange them.